It's almost 10 years. I was not able to solve in a minute. I was able to breathe with peace.
I don't sleep very well. For the first time in 45 years, I slept for
I love working with Michelle. I feel buoyant and alive, Michelle. It's amazing. I don't feel as though I've got to gather in all that negative crap. It's like a different planet. It opens up possibilities. I was suffering from grief and I could not make anything right with my business. But since the first session with Michelle, I had a clarity that I could never explain. All of a sudden, my brain was so clear that I could just do the right thing without even thinking. And whatever was ailing in my body just.
Hey there, this is Michelle Holong, the Real Sparkle Diva, and welcome to episode 42 of the Sparkle Experience Show. And today I would like to talk about the topic of fear. That's FEAR, because that topic has been coming up a lot recently. It was brought up as one of the things that my students in my masterclass that's going on. It just ended for the Master the Art of You program this past weekend. And one of the topics was, how do you actually manage fear? How do you deal with it? How do you keep yourself in a state where you are still able to function? You are able to, as much as you can, keep yourself moving forward. And as well, I like to think of it as doing the things that you need to do to keep yourself safe, whatever that fear is. So what is fear? For me, it is that feeling that gets you into a state of panic with your all your fight and your flight mechanisms coming into play, because your first instinct is to keep yourself protected, and if you can not fight, to flee. So that feeling of just having to leave, because there's this thing that is top of mind where you can't actually think very straight, because it might be gripping you so hard that you have this feeling inside of you that is just, it's contractive. So meaning that all of a sudden you feel yourself feeling shrinking, it's that feeling, if you're connected to your feeling self, it's that feeling of getting that sense of threat, that you just start to kind of protect yourself, and you feel yourself almost feeling like you need to shrink and hide and disappear from sight. So what triggers fear? There's all sorts of things that trigger fear. Bottom line is, the fear still, in my mind, leaves you at that feeling of sometimes incapacitation, not able to think, paralyzed, not thinking clearly. Now, how do you get a hold of yourself to manage that fear so that you can take the actions you need to keep yourself safe? So let's talk about fears for a few minutes here. What things elicit that feeling of fear in us? The first thing we think of is physical threat, that sense of, someone's there, that going to attack, going to put yourself and or your family in danger. That is very real. That's very frightening. The other type is fear of loss of health. Maybe you've got a diagnosis that's affecting your physical well-being, and you're facing the fear of whatever word that is, that diagnosis. That's another fear. Then there's a fear of in the business world, there's a lot of a sense of fear of failure. And there's also the fear of success. And think about that for a while. There are many who fear success because what if? What if I'm successful? What if? How am I going to handle that? Maybe I won't be able to handle it. And all these other things start coming up with that fear. There's also the fear of retaliation. Maybe something happened and you're fearing that somebody's going to do something, say something, send something out, email, or that. There's that fear in terms of a business sense of fear. There's fear of public speaking, very real fear, where it creates such a dilemma in someone when they know they have to speak in front of someone, a group of people, that everything happens. The palms get sweaty and they can't actually think very straight. There's a fear also of dentists and fear of doctors. There's a fear of flying, the fear of heights. I met someone who told me a story, and he was a kahuna many years ago, probably 2014, where he worked on someone to get them over their fear of snakes. That the young lady would, as soon as she saw a snake or a picture of a snake even, she would actually fall down because she would become unconscious. It was some kind of trauma that she had suffered years ago when she was a child, and it manifested, or it showed up in her as just totally being so fearful that she would shut down and go unconscious for hours until she woke up again. And there's also the fear of loss, the fear of loss of loved ones, or of dear people who are very dear to us. And that can be very, very, very unnerving as well. The worry that comes with that. There is a fear of financial loss, of job security, of all of these types of things that we have different levels and of fear that hits us. So how do we deal with that? And for me, the thing to go about fear is, first, if it's a safety issue, then do the things you have to do to find yourself a safe and secure place. The thing is to take that picture, that big picture approach, to assess what are all the options. The first, what's the worst thing that can happen? And what's the best thing that can happen? Then you kind of see how you can prepare or get things in place for the worst thing that can happen. And then looking at the best thing that can happen, that can help you to bring your spirits up. Because here's the thing. What I teach my clients to do is how to be CEO of themselves, meaning able to have things happen in their lives, and regardless of what it is, be able to stay calm in the situation, assess without being pulled left or right by the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, the anxieties, and in this case, the fear. And the way to do that is to really start to become self-aware in yourself, of yourself, and around. And when that happens, to then start to build up your, I like to say, your muscles, right? Your inner strength to be able to handle situations like that. And so what is the worst thing that can happen? What is the best thing that can happen? And from there, it's the next question would be, who can support me? Is there someone I can call out or reach out to for help and assistance in this matter? And once you have that, And if it is that you have to rely on yourself, then what I'm here to tell you is that when you can manage the fear, when you can hold yourself strong and realize that you have more power and strength within you than many of us give ourselves credit for, then there is a way to get yourself where you are able to tune into your inner guidance and then have yourself in a quieter space to look at what is all in front of you and make that choice as to what you need to be doing, what actions you need to take to get yourself out of this fear-based situation and into being more resilient, more, if you will, more, what's the word I'm looking for? More opportunistic, if you will, to look at what all those options are ahead of you and to get creative in how you're going to deal with the fear. Now, fears also, a lot of fears are not yet real. A lot of fears are imagined fears, the what ifs this happened and the what if that were to happen. And so some of the fears we have can be reframed more positively to get yourself through it. And maybe it's as simple as having that person or that support mechanism in place to give you that extra boost of confidence to handle it yourself. So now it's really a situation where a lot of the fear is based on the emotion that's tied to it. And it could be from a past memory. It could be from something traumatic that you either had happened to you or you witnessed. And when that happens, anything coming close to that can serve as a trigger to get you into that feeling state of where you were in the past in your life when you were, subjected to that traumatic incident or situation. And so the thing I want you to realize here is that I'm guessing that that could have been hopefully many, many, many years ago when you were much younger, much smaller, less wise, less equipped. And so one of the things to look at is look at yourself today now and realize that you are much smarter, much more, you have much more capability to deal with things coming at you because you've gained a lot of wisdom over the years, hopefully. And then you can draw on also people who you've surrounded yourself with, who are now your friends, who you can talk to, who you can share with, confide in, make sure those are the people who will support you in helping you to, bring your spirits back up to really look at that, whatever it is that is bringing you into this state of fear more objectively. And again, a lot of it is the emotional thing that is happening when we get this feeling into this feeling state of fear. And if you think of it, if you are in that space, what you can also do is tune into the sparkle segment of the show, because in the space, if you understand that everything is energy and vibration, then what you may realize too is that if we can get to that space and shift the energy, that state of fear, then it's possible to get above that fearfulness and get into a more expressive or much more what's the word I'm looking for? A space where you can be more resilient, where you can find the solutions to your issues, and maybe from a creative, inspired space, you can come up with a solution that will get you out of that state of fear, because it shows you a different path that you can take. Because, you know, with the worst part of fear is it can shut you down and bring you totally into a state of being paralyzed, not unable to really think clearly, unable to want to think, or being so feeling so contracted that you're not even able to think of a different path that could be taken. So the key thing is really to step back, try and push it as far away as you can so you can breathe a bit and look at it objectively, and maybe get some, again, help to take a look at what it is you are facing, and then be able to navigate around or through it. So I just realized that there are people waiting, and I hope that you weren't waiting long. So I might just start again. Sorry about that. I forgot that I had the waiting room set up. So welcome to the episode 42 of the Sparkle Experience Show. And I started out by saying that there are all sorts of fears that we have. And that the reason I wanted to talk about this subject, it's come up quite a few times in this past week. One has been around the issues that are happening in the States right now with individuals feeling very frightened because of what's going on around the gender issues. The other thing is around my masterclass. And one of my students in there mentioned that one of the things that would be very useful is to take a look at fear, how we deal with fear. And that's why I thought I'd talk about fear today, because what is fear? And if I may, I'll just recap, because the fear is all about that feeling of constriction in yourself. Like, it's whatever it is that causes you to feel like you are you're under attack. You need to run, you need to flee, you need to protect yourself. There's that sense of shrinking, you know, pulling in to yourself, of wanting to hide maybe, or wanting to run in the other direction. And it's not a very nice feeling. It almost, for me, fear, I've had a few times when I have been fearful. It's where the light almost seems to get, the room seems to get darker, and the whole world seems to just be oppressive, and it's a really not a nice feeling. So all the things, there's all sorts of things that can create fear in us. There is the first one, which is very obvious, which is the fear of physical attack, the threat of being attacked. It is the fear of loss of life, of that element, and that agitation of keeping safe. There's a fear of health, the loss of health. That's physical as well, a different level. There's a fear of those words, the diagnosis that were given. Again, there's that same constriction. Okay, it's to me, fear, it has different levels of fear, but it still has that energy of that, you know, that inability, if you let it go too far, of not being able to think clearly, of just wanting to just wishing there's a way out, that there was a way to swim up and just breathe and get away from it and run away and as fast as you can. And then there's other fears of security, loss of home, loss of security, of being able to nourish and buy the things you need to buy. Then there's a fear of flying, you know, the fear of flying, the fear of heights, the fear, and those are also gripping, where you're faced with it and it's like you can't think to. You are in a state of paralysis, it almost feels like. A fear of dentists, a fear of doctors, a fear of fire, you know, just a flame, fear of that, because maybe when you're small, there's a fire. And it can be very, very debilitating. And so what I'm here, the reason I want to talk about it is, fear of dying too. But there's also the fear of living. There's a fear of success and fear of failure. Yeah, there's a fear of failure, but people fear success. Why? Because there are all sorts of reasons. Because if I'm successful, I might not be able to handle it. I may make a fool of myself. And all these other things come up, right? So fear, if we can think of it as what is the worst thing that can happen, the absolute worst thing, then yes, if it's health, it's fear of dying, yeah. But if you've lived a lovely life, or if you celebrate your life and there's things you can do to make it feel better. Okay, that's what I'm here to say. There's ways we can get our level of fear down by just the way we look at things. So taking the big picture, looking at what's the worst thing that can happen, what's the best thing that can happen. Then use the worst thing that can happen to shore up, to get your contingencies. So things you can do to try and make sure that it isn't the worst that happens. What can you do to make sure it's the worst you can imagine, less likelihood of it going to happen? Because what actions can I take to make it not that whatever I think is worse, that will not happen? And then the other thing is to, once you do that, is, okay, so what's the best thing? I could live with that, yes. And the worst thing, yeah. If I do this, it could be not so bad. And if I do that, and then maybe then, as you think about that, think about who is there that I can call on, or who is there that I know that who would support me in any which way, shape, or form. Who can I go out and ask for help from? Maybe if it's physical, it's police. Maybe if it's something that's, emotional, it's your best friend, or your someone you consider to be your confidant, right? It's who is there that I feel that I could connect with. And maybe it's a matter of just realizing that, hey, I've been through something like this before. I can rely on myself. But first, I need to calm down. I need to get myself to my quiet space. I need to breathe and just take a step back and just look at it from a distance for a few minutes, but just collect and get myself more in tune with who I know I am. Because maybe if you are really reacting very hard to something, it's because you suffered some trauma, or you observed it when you were hopefully a lot younger. And then the realization of what could be causing you to feel so panicked and so fearful is because of something that happened in your past. And then maybe it's a moment to take consciously to say, wait a second, I was a lot younger when that happened, a lot less strong in terms of physical. Maybe you grew a bit. Maybe you are a lot wiser because you learned from the first time and you did a whole lot of work and you got a whole bunch of friends and you connected with a bunch of people who are your support system, and all of a sudden you realize that it's not as bad as it was back then. Maybe it is then that you can come down a notch, maybe not the whole way, because it is important that you face the fear very logically and very realistically. So not just wipe it away. There is something to be fearful because you had a reaction. So to really take a look at it and say, how can I make this so I can actually start to function, to handle this fear with everything I got? Because I am powerful inside. I am more powerful than I realize that I give myself credit for. So what are the sources of all of this feeling of fear? It could be a real fear of physical threat because you are in danger physically. But a lot of the fears are things that are going through our head that we start to we allow our minds to allow thoughts to run rampant through our and we have not taken the time to think about what those thoughts are that we're allowing to run rampant in our minds. And I like to call them gremlins. They're nattering and they're going, and you let them go and you let them create havoc in your mind. They create a panic inside and you let them run without any control. And then there you are in a state. So what if you could just take a look inside, connect with what you're thinking, and see what it is you're thinking, and write it down, maybe. If it's so many thoughts that you can't really, you don't know which end is up, write them all down and then take a look at it in your quiet time. Make sure you're in a safe space, always, and then see where that goes. Because what I can tell you today is that every one of us is more powerful inside than we give ourselves credit for. We have given up a lot of our power to people, authorities, doctors, I'll say teachers, profs, to tell us that we didn't know what we knew, that we couldn't heal when we can, that we can't heal ourselves, that we can't do certain things when we knew inside, even as a child, that we could. But somebody, if you remember, told you you couldn't. And so what I'd like to challenge you to do is just take a step back, breathe, and think about all the things that you did where you did something someone told you you couldn't do, and think about what you actually did. I'm sure you can think of something. And then from there, from that space, look again at what you're fearful of. And breathe in that space and do the little logical exercise. Again, make sure you're in a safe space. And see if you can see a silver lining in all of it. Because I can tell you that strength is within you. You are more resilient and more brilliant than you give yourself credit for. And if you start to really become more self-aware, it will help you to manage this feeling of panic that comes over you. And maybe you need some help. And if you do, stay tuned to the end, because we'll do a sparkle. Because the sparkle energy, if you believe that everything is energy and vibration, then if you allow yourself to connect to energy of the universe and energy that's healing, then there is a very nice possibility of you being able to shift and be in a different space in an instant. So the key is here to become more self-aware, to realize that you can connect with yourself and tune in to your higher knowing, and be open to things showing up just because you tune into who you are. So hopefully that is making sense, because a lot of things that we are fearful of came about when we were growing up, from what we observed, from what we heard, from what we were told, from watching the television, from listening to news. And it is also from things that we might have been frightened by as a child. Like with that girl, I was telling the story before of this kahuna, and he told a class of us about a young lady he had healed, done energy work on, and her problem was she had a phobia for snakes. It was as simple as seeing a picture of a snake in a book. She would fall into a trance and fall down unconscious, and she would wake up when she woke up. And so he did clear her of that phobia, because that was his specialty. The thing that happened though that they figured is something when she was growing up in wherever she was frightened her, and it was a snake that frightened her so badly that that was her defense mechanism. So some of these things, when it's that kind of phobia, you do need to seek help. And the other thing is also be careful where you seek help, because it's also possible to trigger memories and not be able to deal with it. Because in another scenario, I was in a different class workshop environment. There was a lady and they were doing healing work, and there was a lady who had witnessed her sister-in-law, and she was actually in a fire in a basement that she couldn't get out of. And she was on the phone with his sister-in-law. And in this process, this came up while she was working with some people who were learning how to do this healing modality. And after this session, this lady was stuck in this place where she couldn't get out of where she was at with her sister-in-law. And she was in this state, and luckily she approached a master practitioner, and I was with that master practitioner at the time, and we were able to get her out of that state because she could not get out of it. So, you know, it's one thing to go for help, but it's another thing to be really sure that, you know, they can get you out of that state once it's opened up. With Sparkle, we don't go into that space because Sparkle doesn't get you remembering and bringing up all of the situations where those things happened in the past. Sparkle happens because you're in a space where you're just ready to release it. And that's the beauty of Sparkle. Because I've had people who've been through very traumatic situations and they didn't mention it to me, and they probably weren't even thinking of it because it was years and years after. But after the Sparkle session, there were tears. And the lady was with me on my table, massage table. When I said, "Are you okay?" She says, "I'm good. I just felt something that was with me for decades and it just left. Thank you so much." And she that was not on her mind when she lay down on my table, massage table. And I had another lady and she was on the phone and I could hear her and she says, "No, actually something just left and it's good, gone," right? So it's not something that I bring it up just because I want to be clear that sometimes repeating what happened can create situations in you that you don't want to bring up. So for me, with how I help people, it's really not about, it's just about being there and just allowing. That's what I ask you to do. So even in the Sparkle session that's coming up now, if anybody wants to ask questions, I think I've covered just in general because I can't get into more detail unless I have a situation to talk about. But in general, I hope I covered off what fears are and how you can get through the fears in a more gentle way, more resilient way, perhaps. Have some like a process to go through where you can move through whatever it is that's causing the fear with a little more ease and grace. But if anybody here wants to ask a question, you can stay off camera, or if you want to put up your hand and I can put you on camera, but you can just ask a question and then I'll do my best to answer it. So, anyone? Sure, go ahead, Catherine.
You brought up a number of good points, Michelle, and when you were addressing about feeling the fear and then stepping back to sort of do a more analytic assessment. And sometimes I know for myself, when I have been in that state, I have not had presence of mind to necessarily be able to do that. And I was wondering if you would speak, you've shown us in your classes for your VIP clients how to address that, but I think the audience might be interested in knowing your thoughts on how to deal with that situation, at a practical level.
So when you mentioned the situation, what kind of situation? It's easier if I know what kind of situation you're thinking of. Like, is it
Okay.
emotional?
So for instance, I have I'm more at the state where I am able to see, okay, I do work and being recognized for that work, compensated at a particular level. Don't have a problem with it. Double that, triple that price. And or think of myself as having regular big sums of money on to regularly have big sums of money coming in my direction as payment for what I've done. Prior to going to the class, yes, that would have been very uncomfortable for me. Even though it's not that I was opposed to receiving money for my services, it wasn't that I didn't think that I deserved it. It wasn't that I was not interested in being compensated for what I do. It was simply a certain amount is okay, but a really large amount, add a zero to that amount. And it did not feel very comfortable. Now we've done some work. You and I've done some work on my own for to continue with self-development. And so that's not really an issue anymore, but that was be an example of how people of a problem that a person might have.
Right, and what the problem that you just brought up, this issue of fear, and that's a fear of success, right? It's a fear of getting bigger, of growing bigger, of commanding more, if you will, presence and authority by commanding a larger sum in remuneration for your services, right?
Yes.
And many people feel
And interesting that you phrase it as fear of success, because even if I could feel successful on my own, thinking to myself that I'm a success, that things are going well, that I'm being recognized, and be comfortable with that. What was not something that I was comfortable with was other people regarding me as a success. It was fine if I regarded myself as a success, but having other people, strangers, regard me as a success. And I was extremely uncomfortable with that. Yes.
But so you're not the only one in this dilemma. There's many people facing this. And the neat thing is that you're recognizing that now, whereas many of those other people have no clue that is what is going on. That's keeping them stuck because fear. What I started out saying before you got on was that fear is something that is very real and it keeps us stuck where we are
Mhm.
because fear in its worst at its worst is paralyzing.
Mhm.
It's where you're not thinking straight, you're not thinking rationally. You are perhaps playing the same old thing over and over in your mind. You're not moving on because you can't even imagine anything else because you're so stuck on what it is you're focused on that you're fearful of. Or unbeknownst to you, like this fear of success, you don't realize that's where you're stuck or what's holding you back. And so the beauty of where you're at is now you can start to question that and you can start to work on the things that are actually beneath. Okay, so there's beneath that whole fear of success, there's a whole bunch of things under that. If you want to think of what people like to think of as a glacier, and now above the water level, there's a peak. And so you're seeing the fear of success there. But under that, there's all these other things, which is fear of being seen. It is feeling that you're not up on that in that league, that if they see you, maybe they'll expect too much of you and you won't be able to deliver it. And therefore, there's that shrinking again of maybe I'm not enough. Maybe, I'm not as good as that person. It's a judgment too. It's judging other people more favorably than yourself because you think they're better than you because everybody told you when you're younger that everybody was better than you. And you don't realize that because you were too young to realize you're soaking up their attitude as a little sponge when you're a child, right? Especially like, if you look at it, if you are not like everybody else. So I don't know where you grew up, but if you were not like everybody else, then there's that additional pressure of not of being different. So I was different where I grew up. I grew up in Jamaica. So I definitely wasn't like everybody else. So it's that's that thing that happens, where you're different and then all these different thoughts and feelings that come into that builds in where there's that sense that you are not supposed to be seen. Maybe it was dangerous to be seen as if you were not like everybody else. Maybe it was where you were told to blend in because if you made a big deal of things, it would be dangerous. And there's a different level of fear on top of the fear of just, it's deeper than just a fear of success, if you know what I'm trying to say here, right? Okay, because the seen thing is if you're not seen, then nobody can hurt you because you're not standing out for that, right? So that's it's an interesting thing, but there's also the energy part of that too. Because that there's every word that we use has an energy. And so it's it can be cleared with energy work as well, right? So does that help? I don't know if that helps.
Well, I was thinking about some, about what you might advise in the way of practical steps for someone who is just finding you
Okay, so
and
for the if it's fear of success, the practical steps for that, because the reason why you fear success is because you think if you're under all that is that if you are successful, you're afraid you're not going to be able to keep it up, right?
Mhm.
Underlying that you're gonna get there, and then you're people are gonna find out maybe that you're fake, right? You just happen to get there, but maybe you can't keep it up or you can't keep on going up and up and up. So you're gonna plateau too fast and then you're gonna maybe you're going to disappoint other people around you, maybe your family, right? So the thing to do then is to really start writing down all the things you have been successful at, where you had daunting challenges and you surmounted them, where you know that you did things that maybe others couldn't do, or you stepped up and you surprised yourself. So those are some of the things that you can start to do, is to build your confidence up by looking very clearly at what you've accomplished, where you've come from, what you've had to deal with, the challenges you faced, and the what you did and how you overcame them. And then you might look and say, wow, I'm a genius. Or wow, I'm a real trooper. I don't give up, do I? Or you might realize that you just have a will to move, and now it's just a matter of feeling deserving, right? So it's looking at what it is that why it is that you deserve it too. Because I work, maybe it is because you work hard for it, or that you'd go above and beyond, that you deliver amazing value that you haven't seen anybody else deliver at that level for what it is you're offering, right? So you mentioned you had services. So if you have services and when you deliver, you are meeting a lot of different requirements that others maybe did not even pick up on, right? Because you can see what's coming and what your clients need. And so you address it because you're intuitive, and others may not, providing the same type of service, may not clue in so very nicely and so very precisely to what your clients' needs are. And then all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, I'm giving a lot of value for what it is. And I'm only getting better, because if I look back several years ago, I wasn't doing as much I wasn't actually giving them as much or able to, because I've also done a lot of personal work. And then you can list off all the development, all the courses you've taken, all the things you've added into your repertoire. And it works for everything, because hopefully you're of the continuous improvement, the personal growth. You're on that journey, because once you start to enjoy helping others and you want to get ahead, then you have to keep on improving all the time. And then if you're doing that, then once you start writing, you may not be able to, you'll have to be adding more pages because you have so many things to write down. You think that's going to be useful?
I think so. Yes.
Because that's on the cognitive side, right?
Mhm.
Then if you get on the energy side of stuff, then it can help as well. So coming on to the Sparkle Experience show, there is the Sparkle segments of the show, and you can tap into that too as well. So other thoughts, questions?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to stay much longer, but it's been a pleasure. And thank you for your service. Thank you for your help, Michelle, by bringing Sparkle out into the world. And we really appreciate you.
Well, you're welcome, because we're going into the Sparkle segment right now. So hang on, you could just get a little recharge. Yes?
Okay, I have to be someplace else, show up someplace else at the top of the hour.
Okay, well, we'll be finished by then. So anyways, so the Sparkle segment, what we ask, it's just like if you haven't ever done this before and you're just tuning in, is to breathe in deeply. It's like a meditation, but it has sparkles. So just breathe in, close your eyes gently, breathe in deeply, and allow this beautiful gold, silvery, sparkly blue, light blue, light stream of energy and light coming from the heavens to enter through the top of your head and come in, and just allow it to move all through your body, to every nook and cranny, all through to all the cells, all the tissues, all the organs in your body. Just let it go, move in and breathe in all the goodness, all the blessings, all the miracles, the nourishment, the wisdom from the heavens, and then allow that energy to circulate, and then allow whatever, as you breathe out through your mouth, and gently allow everything that doesn't serve you to leave through the window, through the door, through the cord at the bottom of your feet to your very own special crystal, where it gets healing Mother Earth, grounding energy, centering energy. It gets the wisdom of the ages from Mother Earth. And then allow that energy, once it's cleansed and purified and energized with Mother Earth, healing energy, to come back up through the other cord, the other foot, to join this beautiful energy already circulating through you, all through and through you, bringing you all the wisdom and nourishment, the calm, the feeling of being safe and supported. Just allow that energy in. Allow any fears to leave through the window, through the door, through the cord, at the bottom of yourself. Realize that you are very strong, very brilliant, very resilient, that you are worthy, that you're deserving. Allow yourself to see yourself for the beautiful person you are. Allow yourself to know that you are deserving, you are worthy. Allow yourself to forgive yourself for everything that you thought that you didn't do, blamed yourself for, shamed yourself for. Just allow yourself to forgive yourself for everything. Anything that you've ever done that you thought that you didn't do right, couldn't do right, that you were unable to do to the best of your ability. Just allow yourself to forgive yourself right now, and forgive others as well for whatever it is that they did, because whatever it is that happened made you the stronger. As you sit here, having gone through so many challenges in your life, overcome so many obstacles, got through them and above them and away from them, and just allow yourself to see yourself beautifully successful, able to claim your worth, your value, able to charge your true value, and able to see that you are brilliant in what you do and what you love to do. Just allow yourself to breathe in all the goodness, all the blessings, all the miracles, all the sense of being the one to provide all the things you provide with grace, with ease, with love, with joy, bringing value to all those who you bring and serve and support. And just see yourself truly standing in your power, in your worth, no longer afraid of success, but now standing there, feeling resplendent, feeling worthy, feeling just above, on top of the world, because you know you provide so much value. Just feel that energy going through you, feeling safe, supported, secure in knowing who you are, that you are powerful, you are resilient, you are resourceful, and you can solve any problems that come your way, because you are strong, you're wise, you've been around the block. You're no longer a child. Just feel that energy coming in. Just allow yourself to get re-energized through any fears that you're facing right now. Able to stand in your power and breathe and see things for what they are. Feel the power within you to surmount all difficulties, to know where to reach out for help if you need to reach out, to be guided by your highest self, your inner knowing, your intuition. Just realize a lot of fears are not real. They're what we let our minds tell us, that we allow, when we allow our minds to just put out thoughts that we don't even analyze and we just accept for what they are. And just take back control now to bring your fear level down, down, down to a different level, a lower level, so you can see things for what they are. Know that you have more resources available to you to keep those fears as just challenges so that you can function at your optimal rates. And then whenever you're ready, just gently start breathing, feeling your body again, allowing yourself to move a little, wiggle your toes, wiggle your nose, and then gently open your eyes whenever it is that you wish. So how are you now feeling?
Very, very relaxed, very tired, very comfortable, completely safe.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. So, yeah, if you think you'd like to get more sparkle, just simply reach out. You can reach out to Michelle at mentormem.com, or you can find it on the show, on the YouTube channel, on the replay as well. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. How do you feel now about fear of success?
The fear of success, well, going through the course that we just went through was a good way to help identify it, as well as one of the wonderful things that you taught us was giving us the opportunity is what we think our own. Maybe it isn't our own. Maybe it is put on us simply by repetition. We heard it so many times growing up that we thought, well, they're big, they know. And so we accepted someone else's thought, and you showed us how to deal with that and how to address it, how to pass it back so that we can so that our lives go on without hindrance. And that was very good. I'm sorry, I do need to go. I will catch
Well,
you.
that's great. And anyway, thanks for joining tonight. It's been lovely. And so we will be back again on the first Wednesday of the month in May. And so have yourself a lovely, lovely rest of evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Take care.
Bye.
Until we see you again. Bye.